I was the type of person whose only purpose in life was to just have as much quick pleasure as possible. I was hooked to video games, junk food, doom scrolling, basically anything that would give me a quick dopamine hit. But even though I was chasing pleasure all day, I was not happy. Quite the opposite, in fact. I felt like I was a loser. I was the skinny little person who was socially awkward. And on most days, I felt a bit depressed. I went from living in this hellhole to now working as a software engineer at Fortune 500 companies. I train martial arts, lift weights, and most importantly, I now feel that I have excellent mental health. Most days my mood is like a solid 8 out of 10 and I wake up just motivated and ready to do things. In this video, I'm going to show you how exactly I went from this pleasure-seeking degenerate to now becoming a hyper-disciplined man. This video is not for someone who's looking for a quick fix or some feel-good advice. This video is for the person who is in that hellhole but has ambition and wants to get out of it. So let's get right into it. After studying dozens of ultra-disciplined men, I found out that these men have 3 traits in common. And it is the combination of these 3 traits that makes a man disciplined. First, I'm going to describe what these 3 traits are, why they are so powerful, and how you can acquire them. The first trait is that these disciplined men do not indulge in habits that give them quick pleasure. This means no porn, no weed, no casual hookups, no fast food, because instant pleasures weaken your mind. They mess your mental health and lower your willpower. So you cannot truly be disciplined if your life is just filled with instant pleasures. The second trait is that a disciplined man is a productive man. Since he does not waste his time in instant pleasures, he rather invests it in developing himself and producing things that contribute positively to his community. His source of pleasure is no longer porn or fast food, but it's rather the work that he does. I feel when you watch videos on discipline, this third component is quite neglected. A disciplined man is not a slave to his immediate emotions. He does not throw temper tantrums when things don't go his way. Neither does he get overwhelmed with stress and just crashes and burns out. Now, I'm not saying that you become some emotionless, cold-blooded zombie, but what I'm saying is that you become a bit stoic. You have this ability to regulate your emotions well. So now let's talk about how exactly can you acquire these traits and become a disciplined man yourself. If you want to become someone with good self-control, then the short answer is you need to grow the regions of the brain that are responsible for generating self-control. One way to grow this region of the brain is by doing things that you find challenging. So what I did to build this region of my brain was that I started fasting. Fasting is when you do not eat food for a particular window of time. Because now I was resisting the urge to eat this food, I was constantly exercising my willpower for hours in a day. And I feel like this was the major contributor towards building my own impulse control. So if you're not like really skinny or underweight, then I would highly recommend that you go on maybe 2 fasts a week. And on those 2 days, you probably skip out all meals and just have dinner. The second challenging thing that I would do is that I would take cold showers each morning. You know, the actual 2 to 3 minute long cold shower is not the most challenging part. The most challenging part for me is the stress you face before you go to the cold shower. And when you repeatedly overcome this obstacle of getting yourself in cold shower, then this does wonders for your willpower. What I visualize when I take cold showers is that I am some Viking who's just jumped into a frozen lake, and when I come out of it, I become essentially unstoppable. Now, there are a gazillion other ways you could try and put yourself in challenging situations. Just remember that when you are doing these challenging things, only use a dose that is slightly challenging and you know you can tolerate it. If the dose is too much, then the thing is going to appear way too challenging and you're probably going to procrastinate doing it. You know what the interesting part is? There are ways to give up instant pleasure or bad habits without ever relying on your impulse control. You see, having a good impulse control means that you are going to win that mental tug of war against instant pleasure. But this is still going to require a lot of psychological energy. But what if there was no tug of war at all? Around 4 years ago, I read this book called Atomic Habits. There was this one principle in this book that changed my life almost overnight. The principle was that if you add barriers between you and an activity, then that activity will be performed less frequently, because it is human nature to follow the path of least resistance. Like, think of this scenario. You have this one person, he has weed in his room. All his friends are smokers and carry weed with them. The nearest place where he could get weed is like 2 minutes away from his house. Then there's this second person. He has no weed in his house, he has no friends who smoke weed, and he has no access to weed within like a 20-mile radius. So even if both these guys enjoy smoking weed, the second person is going to smoke far far less frequently because of the number of barriers he has to jump through to access this habit. So using this principle, what I started doing was that I started adding barriers to my bad habits. I instantly deleted all fast food delivery apps, removed all the junk from my house. I was also addicted to doom scrolling, so I uninstalled all social media apps. I even actually deleted my accounts because now I would literally have to create a new account just so that I could scroll. Think of someone who's just addicted to porn or weed or any other bad habit, and this person cannot even go an hour without indulging in this bad habit. But that very same person can actually sit through a 13-hour long flight without even thinking about that bad habit. That's because the environment that they are in when they're inside that plane is so vastly different from the type of environment they're used to consuming the bad habit. So if you truly want to break free from these instant pleasures, then it is essential that you change your environment, because your environment now reminds you of how much fun these bad behaviors actually are. If all your friends smoke, then cut them off and get out of that environment. If you watch porn in your room, then change the way that your room looks. Change the color of the curtains, reorient a chair, change the wallpaper of your devices. Make your brain believe that, whoa, this is a completely different environment that I am in. And this place is not a place where I can consume this bad habit. You know, for quite a while, I used to follow the Nike approach to get productive. I thought that for me to be productive, I just needed to have motivation, willpower, and just get that task done. So this Nike approach did work for a couple of days, up until the point where my motivation ran out. But then I would go back to procrastinating things, and this would happen over and over again. That is when I realized that this sort of emotion-based approach is very short-lived. Like, you can do it for a couple of days if you're very inspired, or if you're in a do or die scenario, like you have exams in a couple of days. But if you actually want to do things consistently on a long-term basis, then this approach does not work. So after reading dozens of self-help books and watching hundreds of podcasts on neurology, health, and fitness, I realized that in order to be productive consistently, you need systems in your life. There's this quote that really stuck with me. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. It basically means that life is not all about setting goals. It's about determining the exact path it takes to achieve them. So one of the systems that I use in my life is a routine. I mark the exact times of the day at which I would do a certain activity. I know that each morning I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. and for the first 4 hours of the day, I'm going to work on my business. At 12 p.m. I would eat lunch, and at 2 p.m. I would be hitting the gym. When you schedule your day this way, it gives you a sense of direction. You now actually know how you're supposed to act throughout the day. Without a routine, you're going to be doing random things at random times, and you're going to feel like you're directionless. Now, whenever I suggest to a person that, bro, you should be living your life by a routine, they immediately get very defensive, saying that, hey, I value spontaneity, it keeps my life fun. And there is some truth to it, like spontaneity can be really fun, but you can actually schedule this fun spontaneity within a routine. So what I do now is that I have a lot of fixed tasks, especially early on in the day. And then I have a period of time where I'm essentially free. That is where I explore new things and leave room for spontaneity. But if you insist that your entire day should look like one spontaneous ball of fun, then you're going to find it very hard to do anything consistently. The next sort of system that I have is a personal set of rules. Over the years, I've observed that when I do or when I don't do certain things, then my discipline, productivity, mood, all these things suffer negatively. That is when I came up with this idea of creating a rule book where I have a few do's and don'ts about my life. For example, I have this one rule that I'm going to be putting my phone on flight mode at least 30 minutes before bedtime. Because I realize that when I get stressful or exciting news late at night, then it really messes up my sleep. And the next day I wake up feeling like crap and I become extremely indisciplined. Another rule I have is that I don't have any social media apps on my phone because of the distractions that they bring. I feel that when you keep getting notifications throughout the day, then your attention gets fragmented and you're never truly absorbed in the thing that you are doing. The next rule I have is that I am never going to overtrain. I realized that some days I would train too hard in the gym, and for the next 3 or 4 days I would be sore and I wouldn't feel like doing anything productive. So I made it a rule for myself that most of my workouts are going to be under 80% intensity, except for like a few selective days. And looking at this, you might be like, bro, what the hell, life with rules and all that stuff, it's quite boring. But the truth is that these rules have made my life a lot lot more fun. Like my overall sense of happiness is higher when I stick to these rules. So try not to have this negative image of rules and instead try to think of rules as your friends. And also make sure that these rules are written down someplace which is easily accessible to you and they're not just stuck in your head. Because when you have these rules written down, then you're far less likely to break them. Finally know that writing down good rules is an art. I really recommend that you don't write rules like I am not going to smoke or I am not going to watch pornography, but rather focus on things that lead you to smoking or lead you to watching porn. Maybe write a rule such as I am not going to hang out with people who smoke. Or I am not going to use Reddit or Instagram because it triggers my lust. Think of all the tiny failures that happen before you commit the big failure. And those tiny failures are the ones that should be addressed by a rule book. Hey, if you would like to work with me to help you build rock solid discipline and quit bad habits, then make sure that you click on the link in the description and book a one-on-one call with me. In this call, we'll discuss where exactly you are in life and what exactly are the tools you need to hit your goals. How most people handle negative emotions these days is either by immediately numbing themselves down with quick pleasure, or they express them in an out of control way. Both of these are detrimental to you. What I have experienced is that one of the most important components of emotional stability is identification of the emotion. If you're feeling angry, jealous, irritated, or upset, and you have not consciously understood that and provided a label to that emotion that you're experiencing, then you are not going to be in control of yourself, but rather be hypnotized by that emotion and then act in a way that you later regret. One thing that really helps with emotional identification is mindfulness. Each time I feel that something is a bit off today, I just don't feel right, I zoom out a bit and almost treat my emotions as something that is separate from me. And I ask myself this question: what is it that I am feeling at the moment? And to be honest, this is going to take some time and practice. Maybe you can schedule 5-10 minutes a day to practice this art of mindfulness. And over time, this will become your second nature. And you will quickly be able to identify the exact emotion that you're feeling at the moment. And once you've actually put a label over it, then half the battle is already won. Now it becomes way easier to control and navigate that emotion. So once you have the label, the next step is to figure out the root cause of that emotion. Like, why exactly are you feeling the way that you're feeling? I might be feeling angry today because a person told me 3 days ago that my videos are not good. And if I don't understand this real reason why I'm angry, then I'm just going to be like a raging bull trying to impale anyone and everyone that I see. But as soon as you identify the root cause of your rage or sadness, now you kind of have a target to focus on, and everyone else is now marked as innocent. And you no longer feel rage or anger towards them. Now, in some cases, the root cause for an emotion might not be that obvious. Perhaps it happened 10 years ago back when you were still a kid. Or that the root cause is just so complex. That is why I highly recommend journaling. When you put your thoughts down onto a paper or on the screen, this allows you to untangle your own thoughts and reorganize your own brain. And you will be shocked, this process of journaling is going to help you connect the dots and identify the root cause of your emotions. So you have identified the emotion, you have identified the root cause. Now the next question becomes what to do about the root cause. There are two possible scenarios for this. Scenario 1 is that there is actually something you can do about that problem. Scenario 2 is that that thing is out of your control and there's nothing you can do about it. So when it comes to scenario 1, when things are actually in your control, I want you to visualize that situation as a chessboard and just ask yourself this exact question: what are the right moves I need to make on this chessboard to get the outcomes that I want? The reason why this chessboard framework works so well is because it removes all the emotions out of the equation. And now you can address that situation purely rationally without letting anger or grudges blind you and make you make faulty moves. But when it comes to scenario 2, where there's actually nothing you can do about that situation, that is when the practice of stoicism is essential. Stoicism is this philosophy of life that you should only be concerned with things that are inside your circle of control. And if something lies outside that circle of control, then there's literally zero benefit of thinking or sulking about it. I'm someone who's 5'10", and back when I was a teenager, I used to feel really bad about the fact that I was under 6 feet. And I would just keep ruminating about how much better life would be if I was just 2 inches taller. So what this constant thinking and sulking did was, firstly, it put a glass ceiling above my head. I thought that no one would ever like me because I'm just not tall enough. My anxiety levels became high, my confidence became low, and to be honest, I lost my passion for life. It is only now, after implementing aspects of stoicism into my life, did I actually stop caring about the length of my bones, something that I have no control over. And then I actually started focusing on things that were absolutely within my control. My grades, my career, my physique, my relationships, and seeing myself actually develop in these domains. That is what gave me my sense of happiness and confidence back. And I know that I made it sound very simple, like this is something you can do in one sitting. But truth be told, I had to wrestle with these thoughts for months before I could conquer them. But the longer you wrestle, the easier it gets. Now the thing is, this framework of identification, finding the root cause, and dealing with the root cause is pretty good for building emotional stability. But this framework only works if your foundation is strong, meaning that you're eating healthy, whole, natural food and not processed garbage. You consistently get adequate sleep and go to bed at the same time every single day, including the weekends. And you're getting a good amount of exercise in. So make sure that your foundation of health is on point before you start implementing these frameworks. So this video gave you a good blueprint on how to be a disciplined man. But there are a bunch of simple changes you can make to your life to become a disciplined man right away. So make sure that you watch this video to learn more about them.